On today's episode of Our Books Dying Out, I'll be looking into 4 books in total, 2 popular books and 2 indie books which aren't as well known, comparing the amount of physical copies sold to online copies. 2 popular books I'll be talking about are Stephen King, The Green Mile, and J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. The 2 indie books I'll be looking into are Becca Fitzpatrick's Hush Hush and Alice Broadway's Ink. The stories we love best do live within us forever. This is a quote by J.K. Rowling. She is best well known for her writing the Harry Potter series, which is a huge franchise all across the world. Harry Potter is one of my own favourite book series, with the books gaining a bigger popularity as each one was released. In this episode, I'll be looking at Order of the Phoenix. As this book is the 5th in the collection, the series had already picked up and become popular, which meant more copies were being produced, and because of how popular the books are, multiple series have been released with different covers and special editions. Looking at the first edition of the original UK edition, within the first 24 hours the publication, 5 million copies were sold, which shows how popular the series is. There is also how there is more than one publisher for the books. As the book has been released worldwide, it is necessary for there to be different publishers based in each country. If we look into digital copies, audiobooks have become a big hit, having more than one reader available for the audience to choose to listen to. One of the more popular choices is Stephen Fry. However, recently on Spotify, with the recent pandemic, actors and people who have worked on the Harry Potter movies have gotten to read the books, and so far, 4 chapters of the first book have been released, the first chapter being read by Daniel Radcliffe himself. On Audible, the books have over 12,000 ratings alone, all of which are mostly 4.5 to 5 stars, giving the book an average of 4.9 stars out of 5, which shows that the book is also incredibly popular online as well. On Goodreads, which is a site where people essentially have a digital bookcase where they can rate and review books that they have read and create lists of books they want to read, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix has received over 2 million ratings and reviews alone for the ebook edition on their website.
I used to read a lot before my health declined, but these days I can't read very often or for as long. I tend to lean towards digital copies now because I can prop up whatever I'm reading on. I first read them in primary school. I found out about them because my teacher was reading them at the time. Yeah. They sounded really good, so when I got home I asked my mum if we could get the books. It's a great series. I would recommend it to anyone.
I like hard copies. I like to have the feel of the book in my hand. And it's very, very good. Very exciting book. Enjoyed the series as a whole. It was once Harry Potter was really, really big and major, basically. Yeah. I wanted to know what everybody was talking about.
Books are a uniquely portable magic. This is a quote by Stephen King, who is a well-known author of the books with his usual writing style being 3-dimensional, human, flawed characters. These characters tend to have a traumatic past, subdued memories, and sometimes have physiological problems. He's written several stories, some of which are standalone, while some are a part of a series, both of which some have been made into films. The book I'll be looking into today is The Green Mile, which is one of his bestsellers and was made into a film that was a huge hit. While not a popular and as well known as Harry Potter, The Green Mile is still a well-known and popular series around the world. When it was first released, it was released in 6 volumes, one released each month, until the following year, in 1997, when all 6 volumes were merged into one book. Despite this, the first releases of the books have sold millions of copies all around the world and is popular amongst different age groups due to Stephen King's diverse writing style. Much like the Harry Potter series, the series was made into a film which also increased its popularity and encouraged the release of different covers, some being limited edition, which still sold in the thousands. Looking specifically at the 10th anniversary book, there were 3 new covers released, each being limited to a certain amount of copies that were all based around the original 6-volume release. There was the gift edition, which was limited to around 2,000 copies. There was housed in the slipspace, limited to 148 copies, and were each signed by Stephen King as And finally, the lettered edition, which was limited to 52 copies alone, which overall adds up to 4,000 copies worldwide for the 10th anniversary. The online digital rating and reviews are less than the physical copies, with the audiobook having just over 1,000 ratings on Audible, Kindle edition ebook having again just over 1,000 reviews. This does not mean that the book isn't as well liked, but it does suggest that the audience who like this book are more inclined to having a physical copy than a digital copy.
I do like to read, yes. I tend to prefer the physical copy. I'm not too fond of the digital copies. I find it a bit of an eye strain, I suppose, really.
Yeah.
I thought it was an excellent book. I've read quite a few Stephen King books, and I'm quite a fan of his material.
I haven't read it, but I have seen the film. I've actually got the audiobook on my wish list.
This is one of the less well-known authors who I will be looking into today. Hush Hush is one of her best-selling books, coming out in 2010 and was published by an indie company. The book is the first one in this series of books and starts with the journey of Nora and Patch, facing several terrifying encounters as Nora begins to search for answers about Patch, discovering she is right in the middle of the century-old battle between the immortal and the fallen. Hush Hush is personally one of my favourite books, which I picked up growing up. However, I was gifted the fourth and final book in this series and unknowingly read the ending before the first three books. Despite this, the journey through the first three books isn't necessarily spoiled in the fourth one, and I was still able to go back and read the entire series as a whole instead, and I still found the overall story completely enjoyable, which is why this is one of my favourite series ever. I felt I couldn't leave it out of this episode. Despite Hush Hush and Becca Fitzpatrick being less well known, over the years the series has sold over 5 million copies and was a New York bestseller for 50 weeks. But it still is far less popular than The Green Mile and Harry Potter, which is why I'm putting it in this category. I was surprised to find out how many copies of the book had been sold, and as I personally hadn't heard it be mentioned before, whereas the popular books I have heard mentioned a lot. In doing my research, I have found out that the series is currently in the pre-production stages of being made into a film. However, there is no release date as of yet. Looking into the digital copies of the book was harder than the popular books, as it's less heard of and not many people have read it. I found that the book isn't on Audible, with the author only having 2 books on the site, both in German. Considering the ebooks, however, there are multiple available copies and versions, such as the Kindle edition, which has just over 100 ratings.
This sounds interesting. I really enjoyed Hush Hush.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a different story. I think I'd definitely read the rest of the stories, and I'd definitely read the other things that she's written.
Any friends talking about it?
I have recommended it to others.
This is the second less well-known author I'll be looking at. She is a fairly new author, only having written 3 stories which are a trilogy, the first book being Ink. The first book was released in 2017, and the next 2 the following years, 2018 and 2019. Ink is about a world where every action, every deed, and every significant moment is tattooed onto your skin forever. The story follows the life of Leora's life, picking up after the passing of her father, as we learn the ins and outs of this world. I'm currently reading this series, and whilst I struggled to pick it up at the beginning, I found that it's really gripping, and I've never read anything like it. This book was a big hit when it was first released, receiving lots of praise. However, some of the themes in the story brought up several debates on what age it was suitable for, as there was lots of loss and grief in the story, with mentions of gore which could be too much for younger audiences. Despite this, nearly 3,000 copies were sold over the year for the first book. However, the following 2 in the series haven't done nearly as well, only reaching nearly 7,000 for Spark, and Scar reaching only nearly 2,000, which after the first book had such a good response is a bit disheartening. Looking into the digital copies of the book, it is available for both audio and ebooks, but looking at how many reviews the book has, there is less than 30 on Audible. This could be because the target audience for this, being young adults for the film, don't really use Audible and prefer physical copies, especially with how there are such a large number of physical copies sold. Similarly, ebooks such as on the Kindle edition, whilst it is available, only a small number of people have rated it, this being 200 on the Kindle, which suggests that the target audience for this, being young adults of this book, lean more towards physical copies than digital copies.
It's really unique. like the way that that sort of society judges people based on the markings that they have.